Angus Hines is a senior meteorologist at the Bureau of Meteorology and joins me now with the latest. Very good morning to you, Angus. Let's stay in Queensland, where we just heard from our reporter Molly Slattery there saying Brisbane is going to peak at 36 degrees. Can you take us through what sort of temps Queensland is looking at today?
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at really hot weather right across the state of Queensland, pretty much everywhere being quite a long way above average. As we've just heard, the southeast coast looking for temperatures in the mid-30s or higher. If you're right down on the ocean, it probably is that 33 to 36 degree range, but just a little ways inland, up into the hinterlands, the Lockyer Valley, the Darling Downs, we're looking at those temperatures, probably the high 30s for the day today. And if you keep pushing west out to those outback areas through the Maranoa, Warrego, the central west and those places, probably more like low to mid 40s for the day today. And they've been in those 40 degree plus temperatures for the last several days. So this is just adding another one onto the end of what has been a very hot run of weather for central parts of Queensland. Today, though, it is not just the centre, it is also the east coast, above average temperatures almost everywhere. And even though those temperatures along the eastern side of the state are 35 degrees, 37 degrees, it sounds warm, but it's going to feel even warmer than that because of the humidity, which is also really pushing in across those eastern areas. So you're going to feel every one of those 35 or 36 degrees with some pretty muggy conditions out there.
Yeah, probably a bit more as well, Angus. These temperatures are between 3 and 8 degrees above average. Why are we seeing this now?
Well, we're seeing a big pool of heat moving across the country slowly. It started out in the west several days ago. The northwest of the country, up around northern WA, that's often referred to as the heat engine of Australia because it's a very hot part of the world, and they'll go several days at a time where the heat doesn't really move anywhere. It just builds and piles up in that region. That's what happened through last week, and then over the last few days we've seen some wind, and many people have felt the very strong wind dragging that heat to other parts of the country. So we see that heat build in the west, the wind then pulls it across to those eastern states, and that's why we're seeing such warm weather across those eastern areas today. With
respect to the wind, we saw the wild winds yesterday wreaking havoc on the electricity systems, not just for Queensland but also New South Wales. Power outages still persisting there. Are you expecting those wild winds today?
Probably not quite as strong as we saw yesterday. There were many locations yesterday, especially in New South Wales, with wind gusts well and truly in excess of 100 kilometres an hour. That's pretty strong. That's enough to bring down big branches and potentially trees, cause a bit of damage to property, cars, roofs as well. We saw a lot of that yesterday, and the wind has come down, let's call it 1 notch on the dial for today. So it absolutely hasn't died away completely. Still a pretty blustery day for many areas, but for most it won't be quite as windy as it was yesterday. Now, there are a couple of exceptions to that, and that is mostly across the southeast part of Queensland, and that is because today could be another day of very severe thunderstorms across southeast Queensland, particularly once we get into those warmer hours of the afternoon and then into the early evening as well. And when those storms really start to develop, they can bring these small areas of extremely strong wind. So for some through the southeast, the likes of Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, a little bit further north as well through Noosa and towards Bundaberg, the Wide Bay, maybe even up to Rockhampton, could be some very blustery conditions this afternoon once those thunderstorms get going.
We saw those thunderstorms in southeast Queensland yesterday, and with it they brought a fair amount of destruction and the hail. Are you expecting similar conditions as what we saw yesterday play out today in those areas you just mentioned?
It is definitely possible. Yeah, today looks to be another big day for thunderstorm development across Queensland, mostly focused on the east coast with a slightly lower risk for some inland parts. And the two key threats for today look to be those damaging winds, much like we've been hearing about, and we've seen what kind of impact that can have in terms of power outages and damage, as well as the large or giant hail. Now, we've seen some remarkable hail fall over the past 3 or 4 days in parts of Queensland, hailstones in excess of 10 centimetres across, just these massive blocks of ice falling from the sky. We may not see 10 centimetres today, but certainly could see some hailstones exceeding 5 centimetres. That's what qualifies giant hail, and giant hail 5 centimetres or greater is definitely a risk today across southeastern parts of Queensland once those thunderstorms get going.
What about New South Wales for today? We saw that impacted by the storms yesterday. How are things looking today?
The storm risk in New South Wales has contracted to the north, so it's cleared out of much of the state for today, although the northeast of New South Wales certainly could see some more of those thunderstorms. So we're looking at the northern rivers, the northern tablelands primarily as the main areas there, possibly getting parts of the northwest slopes and plains or the mid-north coast. For other areas, the storm risk is significantly lower today than it was yesterday. The main threat or the main risk in the weather for today across New South Wales, particularly around the Sydney-Hunter area, is those elevated fire dangers. It's another hot and windy day, and even without those thunderstorms, if any fires get going in the landscape, they can spread really quickly and be awfully difficult to contain.
And how are things looking today in Victoria?
Yeah, a fair bit more settled after we saw an active band of, again, pretty stormy weather cause a bit of damage around Melbourne yesterday morning. That band has well and truly pushed across the state and cleared out to the east now. We're likely to see a few further showers across Victoria today, but doesn't look like we'll be seeing anything quite as active or disruptive as what happened yesterday.
And just rounding out back on Queensland, given that's where a fair amount of the focus of the weather is today, when is a reprieve expected?
Well, it's likely, when we're looking at the storm risk specifically, it's a big day today for thunderstorms across the southeast, but tomorrow we see that risk die down. It should be a much more settled day across southeast Queensland tomorrow without that threat of thunderstorms. But unfortunately, it's only a short-lived reprieve because wet and stormy weather looks like it will come back again across the east coast of Queensland during the weekend. So it's really up and down for the next several days. In terms of a slightly longer run of calmer and more stable weather, we're probably looking around the middle of next week for things to really clear out and for a much more settled pattern of weather to arrive, and that should take us through several days through the back half of next week.
Well, I'm sure that we will speak between then and now. Angus Hines, thank you very much.
Thank you.